Hello everybody and welcome to Dynamic GT League's Walker Memorial Trophy for Race 2 from Mount Panorama, the circuit also known as Bathurst. Let's take a look at the current championship standings after race 1. SGP leading the way on 20 points ahead of Steve F1, Mitch is in 3rd, and then Demon R 4th, David Harp 5th, Twilight 6th, Fluffy 7th, Bunsell 8th, Jimmy 9th, and Rich Blues rounds out the top 10. We then have Groover in 11th ahead of Jason, and then Formula Gary, Mandalorian, SRI, Tyler, Diesel, and Conrad. It'll be interesting to see what happens around race 2. Now, there's no qualifying, so the grid will be set in current championship standings order, which means we're going to have DGT League SGP starting on pole position alongside Steve F1. On row 2 we've got Mitch just ahead of Demon R in 4th place, and then on row 3 we've got Dave the Harp in 5th with Twilight sitting in 6th. Behind them we're going to have Fluffy Planet alongside Bunsell on row 4, and then on the 5th row we're going to have Jimmy alongside his rival Rich. And then we've got Formula Gary lining up next to Diesel making his first appearance in this championship, and he will have Tyler alongside SRI behind them. Now, Bathurst being Bathurst, it will show you an odd grid in a moment, but let's go and join the commentary team. Holy cow, it's dark, and joining me on commentary today is Steve. How are you, Steve?
I'm good, thank you. Pleased to be back on commentary again with my dulcet grummy tones.
So here we are then, SGP sitting on pole position, Steve F1 on the front row of the grid with him side by side at Bathurst as the lights go out and away they go, and it's a smoky start from the dirty side of the grid for SGP. Oh, and Bunsel's big sideways in the background as Steve F1 going around the outside. He's going too far around the outside though. Oh, he's nearly into the gravel but manages to hold on. He's lost a lot of places though.
Yeah, bad start for Steve F1 there. It looked like he might have just touched the grass on the approach to the first corner, so whether he just couldn't see where he was going or whether he was fiddling about with something on his wheel. But yeah, he just
I'm glad you said wheel then. Oh, I tell you what, Mitch is trying to attack Demon R into turn 2. It's a tricky corner in the daylight, it's even harder in the dark. Which one of those then, Steve?
Yeah, I think it might be SGP who's leading. It's very difficult to see from these camera angles, but yeah, it does look like SGP's leading from Demon R and Mitch in P3.
Yeah, and Fluffy coming under attack from Twilight. Obviously this is the first nighttime race in the DGT League as Twilight makes the move around the outside of Fluffy. Yes, he does, just about. Oh, is that Fluffy sideways into the barrier? Yes, it is, but Mitch, is it? No, it's Steve F1 we're having a look at now. Not Mitch, sorry. He is trying to close in on the back of David Harper's. They're not going to go side by side down the mountain. Yes, they are. No, they're not. Yes, they are. No, they're not. Actually, yes, they are. You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, you don't often see cars side by side through there, but they both seem to be getting away with it. That's good racing from the pair of them, and yeah, it looks like Steve F1's got the move done, but yeah, good racing from both of them on that one.
Yeah, lovely bit of driving. So yeah, I was mentioning it's the first nighttime race in the DGT League, and to be fair, if you're thinking it's difficult looking at what's going on here, imagine actually trying to drive it as Jimmy has just been passed by Diesel, I believe. That's for 6th place. So yeah, SGP leading the way as they come down the Conrad straight through the kink, hard on the brakes now into the left right chicane, but is he going? No, he's off, he's onto the grass. That won't be very nice for his tyres, and here comes Demon R. Demon R is going to take the lead of the race off him.
Yeah, a mistake from SGP there, and that's handed Demon R the lead, but then he's coming back into the final corner. Oh, and SGP spun.
Ooh.
So that's dropped him well down the order. Was that potentially dirt on the tyres from the off of the previous chicane, maybe?
You know what, you could be absolutely right there, Steve. Oh, and here comes Diesel as well. So SGP is that one error well, 2 errors in the end, but yeah, it could be the dirty tyres that and getting on the curb causing the spin at the final corner. So Steve F1 making a mistake on the opening corner of the lap, and now recovered up to third, and he's attacking Mitch for second into turn 2. Mitch trying to defend it, but it's too late to move over. Steve F1, sorry, has got the inside line, Mitch on that outside line, but he manages to hold on to it, and now Dave the Arper's closed in. So yeah, SGP's dropped down to 6th place. So interestingly, both the Steves basically making errors. Oh, Mitch is into the barrier. That's Steve F1 up to 2nd place now.
Yeah, Steve F1 is having been 5th on the first lap, back up to 2nd. We know that Mitch does like a bit of drifting in cars, but I don't think he would have enjoyed that one. That's just handed the place away to him, and now that's now Diesel under pressure from SGP, I think.
Yeah, it is. So SGP making a mistake as well, but I suppose if you're going to make a mistake, doing it early is the time to do it, because you've got time to recover. I think, though, SGP, if there's a car that he wouldn't want to see the back of, it's Diesel's, considering the effect it had on his championship attempt of winning last season, and what happened in the last race of the championship last year. He saw enough of the back of Diesel then, I reckon.
Yeah, I mean, Diesel, obviously, we've seen him in the couple of races he's done in DGT. He does know how to race and how to defend. So, yeah, I think SGP is going to have to work quite hard to find a way by here.
Yeah, you could be absolutely right there, Stephen. Obviously, we're seeing a bit of a gap. I don't know why I said obviously, but we are seeing a bit of a gap from the leading sort of 6, and then those further back. But this is a track, I mean, it is Bunsel and Fluffy side by side. No, it's Jimmy.
Yeah, who's going to be bravest on the brakes here? It's difficult to know who's come out in front, but I think is that Bunsel who's come out in front?
No,
Jimmy. Jimmy's who's managed to get the place.
Someone sideways in the grass. I don't know who that is.
I don't know who that was. I think looking at the timing tower, it looked like Gary was dropping down the order, so he might have been one of the cars involved potentially. But yeah, all it seems a cloud of dust and cars off in the grass.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to say that this is not the easiest of tracks to race on in the daytime, as Dave the Arp's got a damn good run on Mitch here, coming out of turn 2 and down the Conrod straight now. Sorry, coming out of turn 1 and down the Conrod straight. To be honest, Steve, into turn 2, which side of the track would you rather be on?
It's interesting because you can take it around the outside, but there's definitely on the outside line less grip, so the best line usually is the inside if you can get it stopped in time. Certain corners around here, just being on the outside line, you do seem to slide a lot more.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, but it looks like Dave the Art was able to get it slowed down enough that he was then able to use the power of going around the outside on Mitch, and I don't think Mitch was too happy about it, because I mean, normally the inside line is the faster line, but if you can get it slowed down going around the outside, there can be a benefit from it. These two have got to watch out though, because Diesel and SGP are going to be closing in on them, because I don't think SGP's really attacking Diesel at the moment. Maybe he's thinking sort of that old tactic of, I won't attack you now because we'll catch up those cars ahead, as Fluffy he went for the gap next to Bunsel on the way down the mountain. We saw Steve F1 and Dave the Arp do it earlier. We saw Bunsel and Fluffy a bit of banging of the barriers there. I think Bunsel actually let him through.
Yeah, that was a brave move from Fluffy, but it's worked out at the end. Yeah, it is. It's not normally advisable to go side by side through there, but as we saw with Steve and Dave earlier on, it can be done.
Oh, is this?
And who is this?
It's SGP. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, he's made the move on Diesel then, so he's not trying to rush it anywhere dodgy. I mean, here's a thought for you, Steve, if you can, right? What's the difficulties or the differences of racing around here in the dark compared to in the daylight?
Well, the obvious one is obviously it's much more difficult to see where you're going and pick your line. So you maybe want to be following another car. It's a bit easier. But also, I think one of the things people are finding in practice was with the temperatures in the tyres. Whether at this time of the day the temperatures are lower and it's actually getting heat into the tyres is proving more of a challenge, and so you're seeing probably more mistakes because of that as well.
Good point. I suppose as well, if somebody has, if keeping tyre temperature is a bit tricky, if somebody has an off, like we saw, for example, SGP have on that opening lap, it could affect his tyres or Twilight's into the pits. That's interesting. I'm wondering whether he may have punished his tyres, but you know what? You could always rewind a bit and have a look, because he's on the spy cam today, is Twilight. So yeah, if you want to know why he's pitted, click on that bottom right corner. Yeah, so what I was saying was, yeah, if you're like SGP, you have an off, you go have a trip over the gravel, or like Dave the Art Peter, as he dips a wheel into the dirt and he's lost the position.
Is that SGP in the wall as well?
I think it was. Yeah, so SGP's managed to pull away from Diesel, but he has just battered the wall. So yeah, so for Dave the Art now, he's going to have to be careful, because one side of his car, his tyres are going to be potentially cooler and dirtier than the other side. It's going to create an imbalance which could catch him out, and probably, if it is going to catch him out, it'll be in this corner, because it's a tricky braking zone.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. But yeah, he did seem to just about get it round there. Okay, but SGP has got a run on him here. So is he going to make a move at the end of the straight? Let's see what happens.
He's gaining quite quickly. I mean, we don't get a massive slipstream effect off these cars, but SGP is gaining quite a bit. I mean, Dave the Art's getting slipstream off Mitch. Can't see. Oh, Dave the Art's big sideways. Oh, I mean, okay, it'd be easy to go, oh well, he's just got his braking wrong, or perhaps he dipped a wheel on the grass. Maybe, SGP got sideways on the curb. Maybe though, his tyres were still out of temperature range and was a little bit unbalanced, and as he tried to push it around that high-speed corner, the grip just wasn't there for him.
Yeah, it does look like the effect of an off is given a few issues here, because we saw it with SGP, had an off and then a couple of corners later spun. So yeah, you might be right. Maybe getting dirt on your tyres and the loss of temperature is having quite a big effect. It could well be. SGP though, I mean, it's taken him a while to get back up to this position. I mean, Steve F1 recovered quite nicely, but then Steve F1 went wide, he didn't go off the track. SGP is now all over the back of Mitch, and he's going to be pressuring him all the way up the mountain now. Up the mountain is not an easy place to overtake, and down the mountain is not an easy place to overtake, but it doesn't mean that people won't try it. Or Mitch is a little bit wide through that corner, but manages to hold on. SGP keeping a much tighter line, or getting a little bit wiggly though. Just to mention, Demon Art is leading the race at the moment, and Steve F1 is right behind him from what I can gather. Yes, he is. There he is. So the gap between first and second is not very big at all, but they have got a nice gap ahead of third and fourth. Yeah, Steve F1, I think he was a couple of seconds behind earlier on, but he's managed to slowly edge closer to Demon R. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see now what he does. Is he going to go for a move, or is he just going to play a waiting game?
Well, it looked like Demon R went a little bit defensive there into the left hand. Oh, who's that? Getting sideways. That's Mitch. That's Mitch into that tricky left hander that I said Dave the Art might have struggled in. Mitch has struggled there. Get a bit too hard on the brakes and the car can go sideways on you. But now Mitch will have a run on the back of SGP. But Steve F1 is close enough to have a run on Demon R. Oh, this could be interesting as they go through. They're fast. Kink on the brakes as hard as they dare. Steve F1 looks like he's slowing down a little quicker than Demon R. Ooh, and Demon R getting a little bit twitchy there.
Yeah, fascinating seeing the brakes glowing as they brake really hard at the end of that straight. But yeah, nice defensive driving from Demon R. He just placed his car in the middle of the road, so even though Steve F1 had a good run at him, there was just no real space for him to make the move. So yeah, for now Demon R holds on.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to mention about the brake disc there. I mean, it is always, we've got loads kicking off at the back here.
Yeah, I think that might have been Twilight just on the grass, just completely out of control. It's so easy to do that with that kink before the braking zone. If you just get off line, you can get flying across the grass on the inside.
Oh yeah, SRI now. Oh, Fluffy, he dipped a wheel on that curb that SGP did earlier, but SRI has got a run on Gary down in towards turn one, and right behind them, Fluffy coming under attack from Bunsell as these two, the two mad Scotsmen, go around turn one side by side as we have a look at SGP pulling away from Mitch a little bit. I'd be interested to see. Oh, you know what? Dave the Arp and Diesel are catching them back up.
Yeah, surprising. I thought with the pace SGP had, he would just start to pull away now. So whether he's made a mistake or whether he just hasn't quite got the pace yet. But yeah, they're still. He's under pressure still.
Yeah, Dave the Harp. Yeah, Diesel is all over the back of Dave the Harp at the moment. I mean, we saw Dave the Harp have a bit of a moment a lap or so ago. So maybe he's nursing his tyres at the moment, because from what I'm gathering, or from what I'm being told, like, if you do have an off, it can take a good 2 laps to get the dirt off the tyres and warm them back up again, which means that you kind of got to be careful in those 2 laps, which yes means losing lap time, but it's better to lose a bit of lap time, I suppose, than to end up crashing and losing loads of lap time.
Yeah, definitely. I think last week we talked about that in commentary, and we kind of guessed that maybe this car would be less sensitive to going off. But the more we're seeing of these cars, it looks like it's the opposite. As you say, it could take maybe 1 or 2 laps once you have an off to get the full temperature and grip back. So yeah, it makes it even more crucial to try and stay on the road.
Yeah, that it does. Demon R leading the way still then. He's opened up a bit of a gap now on Steve F1, so even though Steve F1 closed the gap, Demon R now pulling away a little bit. So an interesting battle. I mean, you mentioned as well, as I said, seeing the brakes light up is absolutely brilliant, as Demon R got a little bit twitchy on the curb there. And I have been hearing, that these brake discs on this Toyota Supra basically get up to the same temperature as a pizza oven. As Gary, that's a big crash.
Yeah, I didn't realise it was November the 5th already. Fireworks going off everywhere in the background by the looks of it. Cars going left and right, yeah. Gary, I don't know who else was involved. But yeah.
Well, SRI had cars in front of him, now he's all on his own. But yeah, the brakes are running at the same temperature as a pizza oven, right? But interestingly, I was reading a story the other day about a local man who burnt his Hawaiian pizza during lockdown in a cooking disaster, right? And it was said that he wasn't very happy because he burnt his Hawaiian pizza. So he said, I should have cooked it at a lower temperature. Neither do I. I think Twilight's just overtaken Bunsell.
Yeah. I noticed interesting. SGP a couple of minutes ago seemed to have broken away from the guys behind now, and he's starting to close in on the lead too. So I guess the question for these two at the front now is, do you battle it out for first place now and get a car in between yourself and SGP if he starts to close in, or do you work together and just try and make it difficult for SGP to catch in the first place?
Well, it's a good point. I mean, I mentioned that Demon R was pulling away from Steve F1, but could it be Steve F1 is dropping off a little bit from Demon R so that they both can go that little bit quicker? It's been mentioned before in the DGT League that by not attacking, you can go faster. And I mean, SGP has been showing some good pace around here already, as he's now pulling away from Mitch. Dave Harper's pulling away from Diesel, and then we've got a bit of a gap from Diesel down to SRI, I believe. Is Diesel close enough to attack Dave the Harp into the chicane? Dave the Harp's concerned about it a little bit, but gets the car slowed down enough that Diesel can't really attack him. I mean, that's not bad from Dave the Harp. Positioning his car there is basically saying, look, don't try it, but if you do, you've got enough room to try it and bin yourself. But we'll see if it works again. So yeah, interesting battle going on between Dave and Diesel. Is Diesel going for it into turn 1? No, he's just having a sneaky little look.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about the defensive driving there. Yeah, if you just put your car in the middle of the road, it's a good way to defend, because it just to actually, it gives a bit of space at the inside, but it's a bit of a risk to try it. So yeah, that's good defensive driving there.
That it is. Just having a quick look at the track map and the timing tower. Looks like Twilight and SRI have just swapped positions, but I wouldn't be surprised if they swap positions because there's a lot going on here. As Gary's got a run on Jimmy, he's also going to have a run on Bunsell, is he? But Bunsel's got slipstream, so Gary's going to get hung out to dry. But now SRI has pulled out to try and make a move, which gives Gary a bit of slipstream. So now Gary's can make the move on Bunsell. This is fascinating stuff back here. I'm surprised they can see where they're going, like. But I mean, to be fair, they're doing all right back there, even though we have seen a few big offs.
Yeah, that was nice driving from all of them there. About 4 or 5 altogether, but didn't see any kind of contact. And yeah, that nice move from Gary, I think, up the inside.
Aye, that it was. Okay, Diesel coming down the mountain, not quite close enough to David Harp at the moment. I've just seen on the track map as well, Rich Blues, I think, who's struggling around this track in these conditions. Oh, it's David Harp, big sideways. Yeah, Rich Blue. Oh, and Diesel's into the barrier. Oh, he smashed the Falcon.
Yeah, I think as so. Rich Blues don't think had the opportunity to do much practice.
He didn't, and he just had a spin on the chicane down here. I saw his arrow spinning around massively. Hang on a minute, that's Demon R onto the grass. DC's done what SGP did earlier. Steve F1 may take the lead. Oh my God, SGP's done exactly the same thing.
Yeah, Steve F1 will be rubbing his hands here because I think, he's just taken the lead, and at the same time, two of his biggest rivals have both gone off the track. So it's suddenly all turned in his favour, and kicking himself a little bit for that one, just a little bit late on the brakes.
SRI and I nearly said Kate. SRI and Twilight going at it down the Conrod Straight with Formula Gary right behind them as they're hard on the brake. Oh, SRI just clobbered the curb. Loads of dust kicked up. That's Gary running out wide. Twilight and SRI. I think Gary may end up in the barrier here. I'll be surprised if he survives that one. But yeah, Twilight and SRI still going at it down into the penultimate corner. No, it's not the penultimate corner, it's the final corner.
Yeah, so many cars running wide into the chicane on that lap. I don't know whether that was just a coincidence or whether there was dirt on the track. But yeah, it's proving a real challenge for the driver to stop the car for that chicane at the end of the straight. That
it is. Maybe somebody, what was it they used to say on Top Gear? Maybe some Australian came and dropped some oil down on the circuit there. Made them all spin off. But yeah, that's definitely mixed things up though. I mean, Steve F1 gets basically gifted the lead, and as you said, both of his rivals off through the grass, so they're going to be suffering for a couple of laps. We're still looking at Twilight because he's now battling on the back of Bunsell after being done by SRI. Bunsell holding him off right there. So yeah, fascinating stuff. So Steve F1 has managed to get a bit of a gap now between himself and Demon R's big sideways. I think his tyres are, I don't know if they're knackered, but they're definitely dirty because, I mean, race one, right, Steve, we were unsure kind of what the fuel would do, what the tyres would do. I think for race two, it's kind of obvious what the fuel and the tyres will do. They can both make it to the end.
Yeah, that's right. I think a lot of drivers probably looked at that first race at what the leaders did and didn't pit, and I think they're all kind of realising that it's possible to go to the end. And yeah, from practice, I think it's been very clear as well. You can just stretch the tyres and take the fuel to the end. But SGP's off again.
Yes.
Yeah, it just seems like it's the tyre temperatures that seems to be the biggest factor at the moment. If you have an off, it's, as SGP's finding, it's taking a while for him to find his momentum again.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I mentioned that Rich Blues is struggling a little bit around this track at the moment. But for example, I mean, as we're seeing with the likes of SGP and the others, as Mitch is all over the back of SGP now. I mean, this is a difficult situation for SGP because he's going to want to push to keep Mitch behind him. But if he pushes too much while his tyres are dirty and out of temperature range, then he could end up going off again, and if he goes off again, it's going to take him much longer to clean up the tyres. So for someone like Rich Blues, who's struggling a little bit around this track in these conditions, if he's having an off and then having another off, the time it would take for the tyres to recover gets longer and longer and longer. But having another off is going to, it's a vicious circle, a vicious Aussie circle.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I think is why Rich might be struggling, and then one or two others. But yeah, who's this now? We've got is that Ray and Bunsell side by side at the mountain? I think it is.
It is, and I think it's Twilight behind them flashing his tic tacs. Well, Twilight's flashing his tic tacs at them. Bunsell's into the barrier. Oh, big crash for Bunsell, and Twilight comes speeding round the corner and bangs doors with him. Not a lot Twilight could really do there. But yeah, someone's wide in the background as well. So yeah, so it was. Oh, is that Bunsell? Yeah, so again, we see a car that's had a bit of an off and then they're struggling through the next couple of corners. It is definitely a feature of this car that I think people may not have realised yet.
Yeah, it just seems to be, as you say, a vicious circle for a lot of drivers, that they have an off and then they try and recover and they're off again. So, yeah, this is really playing into the hands of those that can just keep it on the road. Steve F1 and Demon R at the moment are just able to be consistent at the front, and they're just able to keep pulling away from the rest as a result.
Yeah, definitely. So SRI, it was SRI and Bunsell that were battling. Bunsell we saw hit the wall. Twilight made the move. So Twilight now catching up on the back of SRI, and then Diesel is ahead. Oh, I think SRI's had a slow corner there. Twilight's got a brilliant run on him.
Yeah, this is great racing between these two. They were battling going up the mountain, battling going down the mountain, and it's going to come down again. Who's going to be able to get it stopped at the end of this straight? Won't be surprised if somebody's going to go off the road. It's so tricky to stop the car for this corner.
Well, it's interesting that SRI would appear to have backed out a little bit of that one, but it would be to make sure he gets the car slowed down enough. Interestingly, Demon R has closed in on the back of Steve F1, flashing his lights to let him know that he's there. So is Steve F1 going to go defensive? He's kind of going that middle of the road route, which, yeah, Demon R realises isn't really on for making any kind of a move at the moment. But, I mean, regarding the championship standings, was it SGP won the first race? So for these two, it's good that SGP's in third at the moment, because it will really kind of level things up a little bit more in the championship standings. Oh, Demon R's got big sideways.
Yeah, it's interesting. Since Steve F1's got in the lead, Demon R's just been able to jump straight back onto the back of him. So I wonder if again we're seeing a similar situation where these two, they realise SGP's behind and they're just trying to work together a little bit. But yeah, there doesn't seem to be a lot in terms of lap time between the two. They're just still nose to tail.
Yeah, which is quite interesting because Demon R was crap in practice. I mean, he was. But yeah, I mean, interestingly, I mean, each of the top three drivers in this race at the moment have made mistakes in this race. Oh, Steve F1, I thought he'd gone a little bit wide there. He was just taking a slightly different line as Demon R once again gets a little bit twitchy on the exit of the corner. But I don't think he's going to be close enough to really attack. But yeah, the top three drivers in the championship or within DGT have all made mistakes in this race, and if those guys are making mistakes, then it's quite possible that other people will make mistakes as well. Sometimes you shouldn't be too harsh on yourself for making mistakes. Sometimes it just happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Steve F1 was saying in practice he was focusing on just driving on this track and not actually pushing that hard, because I think it's so easy to make a mistake that it's just best to just try and drive as cool as you can.
Yeah. I think it's a lot like if you're driving around Monaco, you're driving the track, not the other cars. This is interesting though. Diesel coming under pressure now from Twilight. Diesel's going across the grass. Oh dear. I must admit, I do like the way. Oh, where's SRI going? Oh, he's into the barrier. He's gone to see his ma, and his ma said no, not today, thank you. Social distancing and all that. Bugger off. But yeah, I'm wondering if something must have happened to Diesel then, because there was a big gap between himself and Twilight, but now Bunsell is all over Diesel, with Diesel having that second off, and this is where again Diesel kind of needs to be careful. Oh, he's big sideways again. Yeah, this is what I'm on about. He needed to be careful there because his tyres are still dirty. Fascinating. Well, for me it's fascinating. Other people might find it really frustrating, but it is fascinating for me because I see it as, okay, Diesel made a little bit of a mistake. Now what can he do to hold on to his position? Can he find that balance between pushing and not going beyond the limit? And because he's under pressure, there's a possibility that mistakes could happen and someone could overtake him. But then in the attempt of someone overtaking him, they could make a mistake and go off the track. It's a feature that we wasn't expecting for this championship, but could definitely play a big part. Interestingly, hang on a minute, Steve F1 and Demon R, big gap between them.
Yeah, I don't know whether Demon R's made a mistake or Steve F1's in a quick lap, but yeah, he'll be pleased to he'll breathe now, having a little bit of a gap and that pressure now eased on him from behind. But yeah, interesting what you said there. I do wonder as well with the pack, because they're always battling side by side. You're not always on the optimal line as well. Oh, and is that David Hart?
It is. Oh, head first into the Falcon. Oh, he's going to have to be careful as well, because here comes the pack. They're coming down. There's Dave the Arp just in the distance. So the pack is going to be on him in a moment. And Twilight leading that pack with Diesel right behind him. And then Formula Gary. So you were saying about not being on the optimum line, Steve, and someone here could end up being not on the optimum line. And if they are, I didn't say that right, but if they are, where they're going to end up?
Yeah, it's very, very tricky. You definitely want to be on the right line at the end of this straight, and I think they're all just about going to get through. Yeah, side by side, and oh no, Diesel's off again, so that's not going to help his tyres.
Oh, and SRI
in the background. Is it SRI again?
I think it might have been. It was either SRI or Jimmy. But yeah, Gary and Diesel. Oh, Gary's going round the outside of Twilight. Holy cow! Where, dude? Hang on, has Gary's missus started driving for him?
Yeah, that was a nice mate. Gary looking very racing today, but yeah, unfortunately just touched the grass on the way out, so he just couldn't get that momentum out the corner and he lost the place back. But yeah, nice racing between these guys.
Yeah, and then Gary, unfortunately, goes and gets a big tank slapper out of turn one, gets sideways, and now he's under pressure from Jimmy and Diesel. So it might have been Jimmy that went a bit off. So if it was Jimmy that went a bit off, that means he's still got dirty tyres. So when it comes to him hitting the brakes down here, he's going to have to be ever so careful, as they're 2x2 behind Bunsell and Dave the Harp, I think it is. No, it's Twilight, sorry, my mistake. Oh my goodness me, I think SRI just found the barrier again.
Yeah, this is a great scrap between these cars at the moment, and someone else now scraping along the wall. Is that Jimmy? Difficult to say, but yeah, this is great action in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, Gary and Bunsell going side by side, and fireworks in the background as Gary manages to just get ahead of Diesel, who managed to get ahead of Bunsell. I mean, this is absolutely brilliant stuff over the top of the mountain. I mean, what I will say is, I mean, we've driven around Bathurst in DGT League a few times, but the driving, okay, people are having offs. They're going to in the dark around this track, and they're going to down the mountain in any car. But the quality of driving, I think, is definitely improved over the championships. That's for certain. Oh, it's Gary! No, he's yeah, quality of driving is massively improved to have a big pile up.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that particular corner we've had a pile up. So easy to lose it on the brakes there. Unfortunately, with cars behind it, there's just nowhere for anyone to go. Someone else now off.
Yeah, you know what? Gary hit the barrier, and I think SRI was trying to avoid him, but he ended up hitting the barrier as well, and nearly ended up completely sideways. That's massively unfortunate for Gary. He was having a phenomenal lap or two there, and it's ended up in disaster coming down the mountain. But it is so easily done there. As Steve F1 still leading, Demon R still second, SGP third, but you know what, he's closing the gap in on Demon R at the moment, as we are coming to 10 minutes left in this race. The pack is absolutely mentally, sometimes when you're being hunted, when you're being hunted by this many people, you kind of just want to be left alone. It reminds me of something I was reading last night. About a local woman near where I live, right? She kept painting her husband black and white stripes every time they had an argument, right? And they're actually now getting divorced, and the husband was saying that he got sick of her badgering him.
Talk about the last one. And who's this badger in the wall now? I can't even tell.
I think it's Jimmy. That was a good one. Oh, who's that? That's Bunsell and Twilight getting a bit too close for comfort. Bunsell letting Twilight through. You know what? I've just remembered something that. Is that Twilight into the wall? Yes, it is. Normally in DGT League, when racing around Bathurst, they would put a notice out saying that if you do hit somebody into the barrier, like unfair overtake, whatever it may be, over the mountain, then not to give the position back over the mountain, give the position back down the straight. To be fair, I don't think they did it this time, but to be fair, at the same time, I don't think they needed to, because most people are aware of that one now. As we're having a quick look at Rich Blues as he's coming down into the final corner. And we mentioned it's been a tough race for Rich Blues today, and Steve F1 is beginning to close in on him a little bit, so Rich Blues may have a little bit of a disheartening moment coming soon.
Yeah, it's a difficult race for him, you say, and could be lapped soon. But yeah, you're talking about the people not letting each other down back through on top of the mountain. I mean, it's pretty difficult to actually know who to let through. No, with such limited visibility, it'd be difficult to actually see who's taking you off and where they are when you're trying to let them back through as well.
That is definitely true. Definitely. I mean, I know, having spoken to Demonar, he was telling me before the race that this is one of the most difficult races ever in DGT League, simply because of how dark it is. I mean, it's not particularly that late at night around the Bathurst circuit, but it is very, very dark. And it doesn't matter how well you know a track, racing it in the dark is very different, because all of your visual cues, like a marker on a wall, or a bit of paint, or a post, or whatever it may be, a bit of marking on the ground, you don't get to see any of that. So it's so easy to miss braking points, turning points, and all those kind of things.
Absolutely, yeah. Steve F1 has always gone well at this track in the past, but even he in practice was feeling pretty uncomfortable in this car, we believe. Although he's doing a bit better now, but yeah.
Well, it's because he keeps rubbing himself in the car, apparently.
Yeah, for anyone that is struggling on this track, I think the comfy take is that it probably won't get much harder than this.
Yeah.
The conditions with this, if you can cope with this, you can pretty much cope with it.
Gonna have to cut in here, Steve, because SGP is on the back of Demon R. SGP has been absolutely flying. I mean, it's not showing us, okay, timing's a bit off on the right hand side because it's going lap 11, 12, 15, 14, 15, but he really has closed in on the back of Demon R. Is he going to make a move into the chicane? Doesn't look like he is. Now, it's an interesting situation here in that I don't think Demon R has been able to catch back into Steve F1 since that gap opened up, but if SGP is absolutely flying at the moment, could it be worth Demon R taking the risk of letting SGP through, or not necessarily letting him through, but not defending him as he goes to the inside to defend a bit early? But yeah, could it be worth not defending to SGP so that SGP could catch up Steve F1, they battle for the lead, and they end up going slower?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. That depends on how confident Demon R has been able to keep SGB behind him. If he thinks it's only a matter of time he's going to get by, then maybe it is worth doing that.
Well, he's not going defensive here, which you would expect him to do. He's definitely not going for SGP. He's gone straight on. Oh my goodness me, into the barrier he goes. He's not lost too much time, but that's costly.
Yeah, it just shows how difficult it is to actually go late on the brakes in this car and get the move done. He was on the right line there, and Demon R left the door open, but he just could not get it stopped at the top of the hill.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't know whether SGP was surprised that the door was left wide open, or, I mean, to be fair, if you were following Demon R there and he left the door that wide open, you'd probably think he either doesn't know you there or he's letting you through, or he's not defending you, at least, because he definitely didn't defend. Fluffy, though, is trying to attack formerly Gary and manages to get through, I think, and just having a quick flick through the order. Oh, Demon R's into the barrier now. Oh no, that's a big off.
Let's get a play in terms of SGP again now as they come down onto the straight down the back of the mountain. This could be SGP's chance.
Not only that, he's going to play into the hands of Steve F1 as well, who manages to pull away a little bit further. So as they're all making a mess of it up at the front, apart from Steve F1, we've got the pack going bonkers back here as we're on board with Twilight, who's got Formula Gary just ahead of him, Diesel right behind him. I mean, this is not an easy situation to find yourself in, this close to this many cars over the top of the Bathurst mountain in the dark.
Yeah, look at that. There's 6 or 7 in the line there. A bit crazy stuff, but yeah, it's the... did Demon R just go off? I think he has.
He has, yeah.
And that's handed the place to SGP. So again, yeah, Demon R, he lost the lead to Steve F1 there at that same corner, and now he's lost second to SGP as well.
it's amazing how much of these well, to be fair, how much these two have cocked up in this race. The question now though would be, has SGP got the pace to catch up to Steve F1? But we're going to have a look at the pack as Diesel's boxed in a little bit here, trying to give Twilight a little bit of a bump draft, I think, to try and get ahead of formerly Gary, but Gary's having absolutely none of it. He's got the inside line, he's going to have to be careful. Diesel backs out of it, that's why it's on. Twilight big off, and Gary trying to avoid him, I think, got sideways on the brakes, he's off as well. So Diesel backing out of it has managed to gain 2 places. Nice driving.
Yeah, quite sensible from Diesel there. Again, we're seeing how difficult it is to get it stopped at that the end of that straight, and he just played the waiting game and was able to pick people off.
Ooh, Jimmy kicking up a load of dust in the background. I mean, it's interesting as well. I mean, something I've never really thought of about this is, I mean, we saw Demon R go off there a moment ago. I mean, could it be possible? Well, I was going to say, could it be possible that he'd left a bit of dirt on the track, but the dirt would be after the corner, not before. But if someone's gone off or kicked up a load of dust before the corner, it could have an effect. I don't know if it will. Oh, who's this? Is that Bunsell making the move on Diesel? Yes, it is.
Oh, lovely from Bunsell. He's right in the mix at the front of this pack today.
Diesel's out wide.
Oh, yes. Oh, no, disaster for Diesel. He was just starting to recover, and now he's got it all to do again.
That's what you was on about earlier, though, with the that outside line and getting it slowed down enough, because you think you'll have the grip out there, but unfortunately you do, and then all of a sudden you don't. And there's nothing you can do about it once you're at that point if you haven't got it slowed down enough. So Bunsell manages to make the move. He's now all over the back of Fluffy Planet. It is now the battle for 6th place, but Bunsell's going to have to be careful because Jimmy is absolutely flying. He's all over the back of him.
Yeah, great racing in the pack, but at the front, yeah, it looks like SGP now. He has closed the gap to under 2 seconds to Steve F1, so are we still going to have a fight on for the win here? Yeah, Steve F1 will be starting to look in his mirrors a little bit.
Yeah, that he will. You know what? This race has been going so manically mental that I'd only just spotted we've only got a minute and a half left of this race, which means I think the leaders are now just starting their final lap of the race, and the pack here, they should get one more lap in. So these guys are going to be going at it at the moment because they might not be sure if they can get to the finish line or not. So they may be thinking that this is it for position as they go 2 by 2 down the Conrod through the right hand corner. Oh, someone's off, that's a big off, that's SRI, he's backwards, he's spinning, he's ghosted, thank God, and someone's off in the foreground, that's Fluffy, all on his own, I think may have gone straight on, and Jimmy off as well. Has anybody taken the corner properly?
Oh, total carnage there, yeah. SRI just looked like he got onto the grass on the outside on the approach to the chicane, and then, yeah, you're just a passenger from there on. But, yeah, it seems almost every lap there's something going on into that corner.
There definitely is. Diesel now side by side with Fluffy, but Fluffy's having none of it. That's going to allow Gary to close in on Diesel. Diesel getting on the curb, getting a little bit twitchy, and that's going to give Gary the run on him, I think. But Diesel's trying to cover him off while also trying to stay in the slipstream, and then also trying to make their move. All side by side they go. Now Diesel, he's had a practice run at this one on the previous lap. He's going to have to make sure he gets it slowed down in time on the outside line. He's not making that. Oh dear.
Yeah, again we're seeing that outside line just doesn't work, does it? And he just couldn't. There was no grip when he arrived at the corner and just straight into the barrier. So yeah, it's turning into a horrible race for Diesel now, having been up in the top 5 or top 6, but he's just can't make his way back up.
We're talking about a horrible situation as well. I mean, Steve F1's about to go and win the race by the looks of it, unless he makes a mistake. We're talking about horrible situations. I was reading another story this morning about a local man who stole a hospital endoscope, and he's been charged under the Sexual Offences Act because he was attempting to look up ex-girlfriends. That's a bad. Okay, Steve F1 coming into the final corner. To be fair, Steve F1 has had a very good. He's made one mistake at the very start of the race, and since then he's been nothing but phenomenal. So it will be a win at Bathurst for Steve F1. SGP recovers to 2nd place. Demon R, I think he'll be frustrated with 3rd. Mitch, though, I think he'll be quite happy with 4th place in Bathurst here today. David Harm, he's on the back straight, coming through the kink. He's going to be safe in 5th as long as he makes no mistakes. He's all on his own at the moment, and I think he'll be happy about that because in 6th place, there's this lot. there's Fluffy being hunted by Jimmy, Twilight, and God knows who else. So Fluffy needs to get his braking right here, and so does everybody else behind him, to be honest. And Fluffy does just about get it right. So does Jimmy. Or Twilight takes a little bit of a run over the grass. That could compromise him. Jimmy, though, he's got a run on Fluffy. Is he going to go for it into the final corner? No, he doesn't. Try it. Fluffy goes slightly defensive. Jimmy's trying to get the benefit of the better run out of the corner. Can't quite do it. So it's going to be Fluffy across the line ahead of Jimmy. Oh, Bunsell just trying to squeeze past Gary, but Gary was not having any of it. And what a crazy end to the race.
Yeah, absolutely bonkers racing now in Bathurst at the best of times is all action, but yeah, in the night time action, it's really through.
Oh, I think I may have just lost.
P1 and 2 again.
Oh, I thought I lost you for a moment there.
Yeah, at the front, the same two at the front again, although in a different order. Steve F1 this time winning an SGP second, so they'll be absolutely delighted with the first two races. I think will now be joint leading the standings as well.
They will. Okay, here's an interesting. Here's an interesting scenario, because obviously this championship, just as well, before I crack on with this, we're going to show the drivers' post-race comments. So yeah, feel free to read them as they go across the screen. So an interesting scenario is going to crop up now. In this championship, there was qualifying at the first round, but not for any of the others. It's on championship standings order. But Steve F1 and SGP have both won one and come second one, so they're going to be on the same points. Now you could say, well, SGP won his race first, but then some may say, well, Bathurst is a harder one to win. But I think they may have to look at it and go, well, who qualified where in that first race, and take that as the decider of who would be on pole at the next race. That'd be the way I'd do it anyway. But definitely make. Well, you would. I think you got pole, didn't you? Yeah,
exactly.
Now, it'll be interesting to see how they do sort it out. But anyway, what I will say is that was, for having to do commentary on a night race, not easy, but at the same time, brilliantly exciting. Yeah,
absolutely. I think there was some great action in that race. It was interesting at the front that it just all was decided by who made the less mistakes. I think those conditions at the night just made it so difficult to stay on track, and I think that just played a big factor in the outcome of the race. It was just who could stay on the track the most that was going to end up get the best result. Yep,
absolutely right. I mean, Steve F1 once again wins at Bathurst, can't fault him for that. SGP's definitely, I know he was saying that he's not too fussed that he's not won the last championship or the one before that or any of the 5 before that, and it's not about winning championships for him, it's about having fun while he's racing. I believe that, but at the same time I think he's after this one.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, he definitely had the bit between his teeth in the last championship, having missed out in the Masters. I just think missing out again at the final round, I'm sure there's just going to be even more determination to try and get it this time, and he probably has been the fastest driver in this car over the first 2 races.
Yeah, definitely has. And I mean, excuse me, interesting, we go now into an interesting phase of races, really, because we're now going to be heading over to Tokyo for one of the Tokyo circuits. Never been raced on in the DGT League, so for anyone that thinks they might know the track, it's definitely worth trying to get on track in this car at some point, because there are some nuances to that track that if you are not aware of, it's gonna bite you. But it's a fascinating track, I think. I mean, one thing I will say though is, I'm only going to say this because I feel I should, not that I think anyone would, but obviously wall riding is not allowed. So anyone that perhaps loses the temper and thinks, sod it, I'm going to wall ride, it's not going to fly. I don't think anyone would. In random fun races, that's a bit different. It's a bit like putting people in the pits. You wouldn't do it in a league race, but in a random lobby, the fun lobbies, yeah, it's fair game. So at the street circuits at Tokyo, it's going to be interesting because we don't know who's going to be better on that type of circuit. We've not raced there before. And in these cars, it's a case of who's going to get on with this car around those circuits as well. So there's one of the Tokyos, and then we head over to Sardegna A in one direction, and then Sardegna A in the other direction, and then back to a Tokyo street circuit. So we've got 4 races coming up that are going to be an absolute mix, really, of street circuit, not raced on, race kind of street circuit, but coming with a load of confusion because of the directions, because when you race a track in one direction and then the other direction, it can mess with your head.
Absolutely, yeah. It's as you say, it's going to be something very different these next 4 races, so it could mix things up potentially. I mean, someone like Mitch, who's had a really strong start, top 4 in both. I mean, you know, could he be one of the ones that could shine on those tracks? It's going to be interesting to see. Yeah,
could well be. I mean, this is the thing. We just don't know. It's like science. We just don't know. But yeah, I mean, either way, today's race absolutely brilliant to watch. Personally, I think. I mean, one of the ways I tend to know if it's been an exciting race to watch is when you're commentating and then all of a sudden you go, "Holy crap, we're on the last lap." That's usually a telltale sign. And today's race was absolutely brilliant to watch. Now, what I would like to do while we've got you here at the moment, Steve, is, for anyone that doesn't know, you did win the DGT League Championship in the Mazdas, I believe, the Mazda Roadster Touring Cup.
Yeah.
Yes. Well done on that, by the way. So, seeing as obviously last week was the first week that you had been heard by many people and you'd done a bit of commentary, and thank you very much for helping us out with that. I thought I'd ask you a couple of questions about your championship win, in that over the last few championships, obviously, for anyone that's been watching, has seen you get better and improve. And I'm just curious, was there anything that you felt you had to do differently, or you had to do new, to go from that level of qualifying well, winning a few races, to qualifying really well, winning lots of races, and taking that next step to winning the championship?
Yeah, I think probably in my early seasons I was kind of very strong on some tracks and not on others. So I think over time it's just been little details here and there where you kind of pick up little things you've done wrong and learn from them, like particularly in battles with, like, say, Demon R, where you notice where he's stronger than you and maybe makes an overtake, and then you just log that for the next time. Like I think there was particularly like one race in Brazil where I won, where he had kind of passed me in a couple of corners. Mm-hmm. Next time we raced there, I was kind of remembered, well, yeah, he passed me there last time, so I'll do something different this time. And it's just little things you just kind of pick up over time. But yeah, in the Mazda, I think, because I wasn't initially the fastest driver in the early part of the season, it was more about just being consistent. Though, well, I'm not the quickest driver to go out and win outright, so just focus on nailing the strategy and bagging the points and things like that.
Well, interesting you say that. I mean, okay, would you say that you've found any kind of benefit in your championship run in the terms of knowing a track and then not having to think about what you're doing on the track frees up memory, space or mind ability to focus on those extra bits?
I would definitely agree with that. I think the more you're in a groove with a track, whether you know it or whether you've just put the practice in, I think that does really help you in the race. You're just not having to think hard about where you're braking and where you're turning. You can kind of focus more on what the car's doing, particularly if it's a car that's tricky to handle. like for example, there's an Aston last season, because you did have to focus on what the car was doing a bit more. If you already knew where you were braking and where you were turning and all of that kind of stuff, then it did kind of help, I found. So I think that just kind of does show that if you do practice, it does give you a benefit.
Yeah, I mean, even for the likes of Rich, who's had a very tough race today, but that'll be logged in his memory bank of, right, okay, these are the things I did. Maybe he'll watch this race footage and he'll hear things that we've said, and he might go, okay, yeah, that explains why I had an off and then I didn't have any grip and I went off again. And so sometimes there's things like that you pick up. And I know I've noticed that, like you said there in the Zanassin, if you had to think about where you were going and think about what the car was doing, then you wouldn't quite get to grips with what the car was doing, because you're focusing on where you're going, and then you'd end up not going where you want to go. So it might sound a bit confusing, but I know what I meant. But yeah, I mean, is there anything as a DGT League champion that you feel you could achieve either in DGT or in racing or anything like that? I mean, is there a target for the Steve F1?
Not really, because I think when I first come into DGT, I probably wasn't ever imagining I'd take a championship. The most important thing with all of this is you enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's the most thing. So for me, just little things really, like once I was up to speed, it was like I targeted, like, could I win my first race, and then could I like win more than a race in a season, and then eventually could I win a championship. So it's just little things. There's no like big kind of target. The most important thing is you enjoy it at the end of the day, wherever you are in the field. If you're not enjoying it, then that kind of defeats the whole object, I would say.
Yeah, that is true, and also very profound, really. I mean, it's very true. I mean, it does remind me. I mean, I've been doing a lot of reading recently, as you may have noticed, and like I was reading about a guy who lives near me, who. There was a man who had had several intense conversations with a profoundly overweight monk, and he was saying that he's a deep fat fryer.
Nice that you ended on another food joke.
Yeah. Oh. If I had a microphone that I could drop, I think I'd drop it now and walk off. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, it is about enjoying it, and I know I've mentioned Rich a few times here, but it's because I feel for him, because I know he would not have enjoyed much of that race at all, because it is difficult. I mean, to be fair, I do think it's up there as one of perhaps the toughest races ever in the DGT League. Bathurst, the mountain section. I mean, there's something else I haven't mentioned about that bit as well, but Bathurst, the mountain, the dark, and that's the key point. Bathurst is a tricky track anyway. You add dark or take light away from it, and it's very, very, very tough. And I think some people may realise that in that situation, like if they watched perhaps your footage of the race, or perhaps even maybe SGP's footage of the race, that the points where they were going their fastest was when they were actually driving the slowest. So the more, if they were pushing more, that may have been when the mistakes happened, and when they were actually being more cautious and more smooth and going, like for example, over the top of the mountain and going, well, I could kind of just about do it nearly flat out, or I could just do a nice big lift off and guarantee I'll make sure I get around that corner every time and end up going faster for it. But yeah, it's one of those things. Anyway, I think at this point it's time to say thank you to Steve F1 for joining us on commentary.
Thank you, enjoyed it again.
No problem, just don't badger me. The thing is, I've got about another 4 more, but I'll save them. So I think it's only right to check out the confirmed race results and the championship standings. Actually, I had said I'll get onto that. I was talking about going over the mountain. Something I would like to point out with this car is, for anyone that isn't aware of it, second gear is an evil bugger. If any of the drivers were using second gear at any point coming down the mountain, they may have found that that's when the car was getting very slippery for them. If they'd have stayed in a higher gear, it potentially would have been much more stable. But also, I don't know if you noticed this, Steve, coming down the mountain, that first part of coming down the mountain where you're actually on the brakes trying to slow it down, if you're on the brakes around the corners, the car would just want to go sideways on you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The 2 key points of this car is don't brake out, only brake when the steering wheel is completely straight, and don't use second gear. It's got enough power in third that even in the slow corners you can still get a good exit. So yeah, you just try and only use second if it's absolutely necessary, really. And then the rest of the time just drive around smoothly. The smoother and slower you actually drive, and the quicker you'll find you'll go. You'll kind of surprise yourself about how quick you can go if you're just not pushing.
Exactly. Right, okay, time then to check out the confirmed race results. Oh, before we do actually have a look at the confirmed standings, there is one more thing I wanted to talk to you about, Steve, and that is, obviously last week, DGT League revealed the next championship car, or should I say cars. The Special 4 Cup has been revealed with 4 choices of cars for the drivers, but there's only 4 of each car, and the pick of the car is going to be in reverse championship order from the Zanassin Championship, which was the last one. So whoever finished sort of bottom in that is going to get first pick, and there are 4 very different types of car. So I'd be interested to know what your thoughts were when that reveal was made, but also what your thoughts might be on what that could do to that championship.
Yeah, very interesting. I think as it's been billed, the biggest shake-up since the league started, and I think it could well prove to be the case, because we've seen predominantly the championships have been everyone in the same car with fixed setups, same tyres. The sort of the goal of just keeping it as much equal as possible for all the drivers, so whoever does the best job of the day wins. But this could really shake it up next season, because I think we've seen in the past when we've had championships where there are different cars, there are different strengths to each car, and on different tracks there can sometimes clearly be, even with BOP on one car, that's easier to achieve a good lap time than the others. So with it being in the order, people picking in the order that you said, that could potentially give the opportunity for some of those that have struggled in previous championships, like for example SRI and Gary, I believe, were the bottom 2 last season. They've got a real opportunity to pick a car that they could really like and be strong in, so it could be their chance to shine, as well as 1 or 2 others. Whereas if you're like Demon R, Steve F1 and SGP, who've had it their own way for the last few seasons, to be in the top 3 in the championship again next season, it's going to be a big challenge for them, because they could well end up with not a lot of choice of car when it comes to their pick. And they might have to work extra hard next season to stay at the front.
Definitely. I mean, this thing, there's 4 cars, Subaru, Alfa Romeo, Volkswagen Scirocco and Toyota, Group 4 cars, 4 different drivetrains. So you've got 4-wheel drive, mid-engine rear-wheel drive, front-engine front-wheel drive, and front-engine rear-wheel drive. So 4 very different drivetrains, 4 very different acceleration rates, cornering speeds, braking rates. But I think, having had a bit of an insight into what was happening, I must admit I was looking forward to the reveal, because for me it was always finding, in the first championship the DGT League did with the Group 4s, basically you could use any car you wanted, and you could use a different car from one race to the next. And as we know, what we found was the majority of people would end up using the same car at one race, and then like the best car for a track each week, which meant testing a lot of cars. So it was kind of like, okay, how could you have a very mixed grid but without it going completely bonkers? And like basically, because if you gave everybody the choice, it would only take one person to pick, say, the Renault Megane, and they're going to win most of the races because that car's ridiculously overpowered, well, underpowered, but the handling is phenomenal on it. But doing it the way that DGT League has, it's kind of like, okay, yes, there's 4 cars, but they're all of 4 very different abilities, and the difference between the Subaru and the Toyota is quite big, even with BOP on. Because like the 4-wheel drive of the Subaru against the rear-wheel drive of the Toyota, if you abuse the Toyota, it won't go very quickly. It's going to take a real drive to get the maximum out of that car. And as you said, the likes of Steve F1, SGP and Demon R are probably not going to have much of a choice on what, well, Demon R's not going to have any choice at all. Steve F1 may have the choice of 2 cars, and SGP could possibly have the choice of 3 cars. But I can't imagine any of them are going to end up in the Subaru or the Alfa Romeo.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I would just say to all the drivers, I know some have more time than others to practice, but yeah, I would just kind of, if you do have the time, just try all 4 cars out, because they all, as you say, they've all got very, very different ways in which they drive. So yeah, just give them all a try, because it's your car for the season. Once you pick it, you're stuck with it for the season. So, you know, just take a bit of time to feel all the 4 cars, and the one which you really, you know, feel most comfortable in, and the one you feel you can easily get to a quick lap time in, is probably the one to go for. And they've all got different strengths as well, haven't they, in terms of some can get better off the line than others, some use more fuel than others. So just have a think before you pick. But yeah, the Subaru clearly, you know, does seem to be one that is a good choice.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, by all means try them all, see which one you're comfortable with, and then pick the Subaru. Because I mean, in all fairness, it is the best off the line, potentially the best handling. It's very good on the brakes. It's a very stable car. It's not easy to spin it. I mean, I know I've driven that car and thrashed it, and it's not easy to spin it. The Toyota, you could easily spin that. The Scirocco, stable, massive, really stable, but understeery until you realise and remember it's a front-wheel drive car. Once you get past that, it's a very nice car to drive. The Alfa doesn't quite have the top speed. The Scirocco's faster in a straight line, but the Alfa is handling. It is a brilliant car, but the Subaru will overtake it easily on a straight. So it's, for me, I must admit, if I had first pick, I would be mean and I'd go right Subaru, because you ain't getting me if I'm in the Subaru. But this is where you were saying the likes of SRI and Gary. I mean, I could understand anyone that has that first pick picking one of the other cars if they prefer it, but I would highly recommend just pick the Subaru, because even if, I mean, let's put it this way, right, if it was between SGP, you and me, right, and there was one Subaru and SGP had the first choice out of us 3, there's one Subaru, one Alfa Romeo, one Toyota, you guarantee that SGP had picked the Subaru so that neither of us 2 could be in it.
Yeah, you would be foolish if you've got the pick. You'd be foolish not to pick the Subaru, I would say.
Well, that's the thing. But even if SGP didn't pick the Subaru, and then it was up to you to have the choice, you wouldn't let Demon R have the Subaru.
Exactly. Yeah, you've got to pick the car that you think you're going to have the best chance in at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Mate, there's an element of picking the car you think the most fun, but of course you're always going to pick the one that you think you're going to be the quickest in.
Yeah.
So you're better off going with that. But what I would say is to those, not just the top 3 drivers, but those who are also quite up in the standings, who might not get necessarily their first pick of car next season, even though the Subaru clearly is the car to have. They've all got their own strengths. So even in the Toyota, you're not going to be just last and when everybody else. BAP on all those cars will be in the mix. It's just that some do clearly, it's just easier to get to a good lap time than others. So I think everyone will still have a chance to shine next season. But it's good that maybe some of those drivers that have struggled in the past, it could be their season next time around.
I mean, this is the thing, I haven't got a clue who is going to win races, let alone win the championship. I mean, okay, we could end up being in the same situation with the same top three, but as you said, I mean, if we end up with, I mean, Gary in a Subaru all of a sudden could become a race winner. He'd have to work at it, he'd have to work for it, don't get me wrong, but he could find himself battling for wins. Jason, I think Jason was quite low in the standings. Someone like him, if he gets the right kind of car, holy cow, we know he's good. He's not going to be easy to beat. And you've also got the likes of, Tyler, who's been sort of scratching at that victory for quite some time. There's a lot of drivers and Twilight, Fluffy, Groover. I mean, there's so many that could have a phenomenal season. But at the same time, I think it's going to be epic to watch, because I know when I was driving the cars the other day, and there was about 6 or 7 of us, I was driving and I was near the back, to be fair, but it was the first time in years that I sort of sat there and went, this is a bit like driving touring cars, because there was a set mix of different cars, different drivetrains, but there's the structure of it of, you're not going to change car every track. You've got that car for the championship, and I do think it needed that kind of not restrictions but structure to allow different car choices, but without it getting out of hand.
Yeah, absolutely. You can tell a lot of thought's gone into it, because all the cars are very different. The tracks I think have been announced as well, and they're all the good mix of tracks, high speed tracks with long straights, more tight and twisted tracks. So they're all every race is going to be different as well. I think you're not going to see same drivers winning each one either. I think it could be a really open season.
And as we saw at the first race of this championship, having a 5-minute qualifying session added the pressure, but it was a 5-minute qualifying session on a track where it takes you 4 minutes to do your outlap. Well, in the next championship, they're all racetracks. It's going to take you, 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes max to do an outlap. So you've got a chance of getting 2 hot laps in. So the pressure's on. And that is going to really mix things up as well. Because we've seen when the pressure's on, sometimes mistakes can be made. And some cars will be better at some tracks than others. I must admit, I can't wait. As much as I've been looking forward to this current championship we're in, I can't wait for that one. But having said that, I can't wait for the one after that, because if I'm right, I think the car for that will be being announced soon as well.
Oh, I have no idea of that, but I'll look forward to hearing about that one soon as well.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Right, Steve, I'm going to call us done there. Thank you very much for joining me on commentary again. It's very interesting to have the insights of another person, better than me sitting here and talking to myself while doing it. Thank you very much for helping us out. And okay, let's check out the confirmed race result and the championship standings for the third attempt. Steve F1 taking the victory then, and the maximum at 20 points, finishing ahead of SGP in second place. Demon R finishes ahead of Mitch, so interestingly the same top 4 drivers finishing in the top 4 but in a different order, which could be very interesting for the championship standings. Dave the Harp finished in 5th with Fluffy Planet finishing in 6th place ahead of Jimmy in 7th. One of Jimmy's, if not one of the best best finishing result for Jimmy since he's joined DGT League. Twilight's had an eventful race on the Spy Cam, sitting in 8th place on that race, with Bunsell not too far behind him in 9th place, and then Formula Gary in at 10th. SRI finished in 11th, with Diesel finishing in 12th. Rich Blues unfortunately a little bit behind in 13th, while Tyler unfortunately did not make it to the end. Maybe he got lost in the mountains in the dark. Either way, I think it was a brilliant race to watch, and it'll be interesting to see what happens at the next event. But for now, let's go and have a look at what that result has done to the championship standings. And I've got a feeling that I might end up sounding like I'm repeating myself a little bit here, because we have SGP and Steve F1 are both tied on 37 points. However, SGP is ahead because the way DGT are going to measure things this championship is whoever gets to the higher points first when it's tied will be ahead. So for the next grid, SGP will start ahead of Steve F1. Mitch and Demon R, they're both tied on 28 points, but Mitch got to a higher score first, so Mitch will start ahead of Demon R. David Harp's in 5th on 22 points, and he's ahead of Fluffy in 6th on 19. Twilight 1 point behind him on 18, and then a couple behind him is Jimmy on 16, with Bunsell right behind him on 15. Ridge Blues is 6 away, but still in the top 10 on 9 points. We then got Formula Gary sitting in 11th place on 9, and then Groover on 5 points alongside SRI, so Groover will start ahead of SRI at the next race. Jason and Diesel both on 4 points, and again Jason will be the one that starts ahead. Mandalorian is sitting on 2 points, although unfortunately we may not see him again in this championship, and Tyler and Conrad are yet to score, and we may have a new driver appearing soon if they manage to get a bit of testing done with a few of the guys. So it'll be interesting to see how things pan out for the remainder of the championship. And as I mentioned, I mean, we're 2 races in, and we've got what, 4 pairs of tied drivers. Is that 4 pairs of tied drivers, or 4 pairs of drivers that are tied on points? I think it's that one. They can't all be Alex Albons now, can they? Anyway, this has been a fantastic race, and it's looking like it's going to be an interesting championship, that's for sure. So make sure you come and join us for round 3, which is going to be from one of the tricky Tokyo circuits, which I think has probably got the most evil chicane I have ever seen. And yeah, we're going to have to try and negotiate that corner for 40 minutes. And I mean, many people said they didn't like the Singapore sling in Formula 1. I think this chicane is worse. Anyway, have a good one, folks. Stay safe, and we'll see you all again soon.